This is a broadcast today that you don't want to miss. Dr. Ned Mamula, author of America's New Quest for Mineral Independence, is our solo guest today. And let me read from the inside of his book what Stephen Moore, visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, had to say about his book. Ned Mamula has unearthed a stunning find. America is sitting on a multi-million-dollar, trillion-dollar treasure chest of minerals and valuable resources. They are greater in worth than all the gold and silver that has been fought after by world leaders, fought by world leaders and pirates throughout history, throughout our entire history. It's crazy. Why aren't we benefiting from these riches buried right below our feet, right on American soil? Why are we dependent on Russia, China, and the Middle East for rare minerals that are abundant right here in our home? This is a groundbreaking opportunity for America to become the Saudi Arabia of mineral production for the rest of the 21st century. We welcome you to the broadcast. Why are we not?
Armstrong Williams, thank you for the invitation. Over the last 30, 40, 50 years, we have had a mineral industry and a mining industry that has been pretty much hijacked by permitting, regulations, lawsuits, and something people don't understand much about, federal land withdrawals. So when you add up the effect of those three things, our mining industry has been hamstrung for the last 30 plus years. And ours is the only country in the industrial world that does not have a Bureau of Mines. Our Bureau of Mines was shut down in the mid-90s. And from that time till now, our mineral output has gone increasingly downhill to the point where we're now relying on China, Russia, and other dictatorships for many of the minerals we need to survive.
You know, so we're so mineral rich, we don't use our land, and we depend on others who just marginalize us. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
What's happened, Armstrong, is policymakers have pretty much sold a bill of goods to the American people saying, we can import everything we need from our allies and other countries rather than, ripping up our own land. And this is built on the false premise that we can't have a great environment, a clean environment, and mining at the same time. I'm not even saying that's a false premise anymore. It's an out-and-out lie. We can have both. And what's happened, what people don't understand, is technology has swept through mining like every other field, and we can do mining like you wouldn't believe. We have the greatest and most stringent regulations in the world, and our mining industry is phenomenal, and they do for us what people just don't understand. But you got to understand, mining got a black eye many years ago. Yes, there were some mistakes. Yes, there was some land that was, torn up. But that wouldn't happen today because the CEOs of major mining companies would be handcuffed and in a federal penitentiary if they repeated the mistakes of the past. Not likely to happen.
And this allows China to become today's mineral superpower.
China loves it. They use our laws, rules, and regulations against us, and they're very artful. China has an unbelievable mineral mining metallurgy program. I actually admire what the Chinese have done. I really do. Actually, the Chinese have metal, along with earth, wind, soil, and air, as part of their fundamental cultural qi. Metal is something that's important to the Chinese culture, and they really value the metals and minerals that they can get. And if they don't have them, they go to other countries and get them.
Who are our nation's mineral accountants?
We have an unbelievable federal agency known as the United States Geological Survey. I was honored to spend the first part of my career there. They are the mineral accountants. These are the people who have figured out where ore deposits are, what type of minerals are in them, the types of modeling it would take to explore. These people are phenomenal. They're geologists, geophysicists, chemists, geochemists, and all other professionals related to that. And don't forget, we don't have a Bureau of Mines anymore. That was closed. So our USGS is more important now than ever.
What you mentioned this in your book, the risk and the rewards associated with this.
Yeah, right. The risks that we have associated with this whole problem are we might have a trade restriction of key metals or minerals, or worse, an embargo similar to the oil embargo from the late 70s and 80s. People that are around today remember how they waited in line for gasoline. It was very painful. We are already there in the mineral world, okay? And so this is a risk, and we're actually in risk territory. The reward would be, Armstrong, if we loosen regulations and allow the mining industry to get onto federal land and do exploration, careful and environmentally friendly production, and if we have metallurgy returned onshore to the United States. We offshored most of our metallurgy, and we don't have enough students to fill the pipeline for the workforce coming up.
Dr. Ned Mamula, geologist and Bridges author, rare metal, is our guest for the entire half hour. I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. You know, Dr. Mamula, what you're saying to our audiences today is that we need to rediscover some of the West's greatest, oldest treasures that have always been here.
That's right. In other words, lands that are withdrawn by the federal government to create, parks or whatever, those lands are off limits pretty much forever. That means you cannot explore on them, let alone produce. So the more lands that are withdrawn, the more lawsuits frivolously filed by others, and the heavier burden of permitting on mining companies means less and less production. There's a problem going on now called Operation Dragon Bridge, where other countries are paying people within this country to file these frivolous lawsuits and throw a wrench into the permitting and approval process. And believe me, as I said a minute ago, other countries know how to use our laws against us to our own detriment, unfortunately.
Why do you feel imports have gone wild?
They are going wild because when you look at what we have in this country, there's no real need to import. We are now importing from no less than 57 countries, okay? You look at the list of the critical minerals in the book and you see, okay, fine, 57 countries, we are importing greater than 50% of many of these minerals from a handful of countries. Let's put it this way, 2/3 of the import to this country come from adversaries, China, Russia, and other dictatorships. This is probably not a good idea going forward.
You know what's fascinating? Do you think Americans really realize the importance of minerals to this nation and what it impacts?
There's an old saying, Armstrong, if it can't be grown, it has to be mined. And so, okay, not many people have heard that. The point is, in our schools, there's no basic geology, there's no basic mineral resources, there's no basic natural resources. We have a dearth of, in our education system where kids don't realize where things come from. A cell phone has about 60 minerals in it, and without mining and metallurgy, there would be no cell phone. So this is very important, just like gasoline. Without oil production, you don't have gasoline. So you can see there's a lack of understanding of our natural resource wealth. And our politicians are to blame too. America has mineral wealth, and our politicians usually, they dispatch it. They don't want to use it for geopolitical advantage. But other countries do, and they do it successfully. So,
in 2020, the United States was 100% import reliant for 17 minerals and more than 75% reliant for another 20. And this is according to the U.S. Geological Survey. And of the 64 elements analyzed by the United States government, China was the leading source of imports of 20 of those items, including the rare earths. How is that possible?
You know, if you take the 27 or the 30, it almost doesn't matter, but rare earths are a bundle of 15 different metals. So if you add 30 and 15, now we have 45 different metals that we're 100% import reliant. And it happens for two reasons. Number one, we have stymied our mining industry. We can't produce domestically. And number two, we offshored all of our, or most of our, mineral processing and metallurgy. Other countries are doing this very successfully. For some reason, the United States lost its capacity and capability to do metallurgy, which is making metal out of minerals. That's called metallurgy. And we're not doing it, and we're not doing mining like we should. And we don't have mining engineering and economic geology in colleges and universities where kids can study that, get supercharged, and get into it as a career. All these things are related, Armstrong.
You know, the report suggested that the approximately 500 cobalt, copper, lithium, and nickel mines operating today will need to increase by between 40 and 80% to meet demand for batteries, depending on the McKinsey demand scenario that is applied. 80% increase? Is that possible?
Probably not. And if you look at some of the agencies and organizations around the world, the International Energy Agency, for one, has come out a year ago or so and said, we're not going to meet our green energy targets. It's not going to happen because you cannot increase mining at a rate that will sustain the green energy revolution. It's not going to happen. Now, what to do? Maybe scale back those wishes and increase the mining output of our country and maybe others, but principally our country. You know, our founders wanted us to be self-reliant in minerals and metals that are here in our country and not rely on monarchical favorites in other countries. Just last week, we found the Canadian company for which we rely on some rare earth minerals went bankrupt. And so our leaders now think that we can rely on others. We can't. Not only can we not rely on our allies, but we can't rely on our adversaries. Although, ironically, our adversaries are the ones that have been the greatest supplier of the minerals that we need as a country for our national defense and for our economic stability. So it's an ironic situation. It's a big topic, but it needs more and more attention until something is done.
You mentioned that, hinted that the regulations, though, has just gone awry.
They have, and as we see with the company I'm with, GreenMet, we are a mineral mining and advocacy company. We look at regulations and other things that impact mining. We work with our clients. The regulations at the federal level have grown almost to a level that they're not sustainable. And here's what happens. If you have money to invest in mining, exploration, metallurgy, you're not going to invest it in the United States because you have an idea, my money isn't going to do much because I can't get approvals that I need. But I can get them over here in South Africa or from our other friends in Canada and Australia, two countries which I admire. They have a beautiful, beautiful mining economy. Regulations are minimal. Companies write their own environmental reports. And they understand their mineral wealth, and they don't shun it. They embrace it. And this is the difference between the U.S. and Canada and Australia and South Africa.
I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. You know, many believe that mineral security is economic stability. Talk to us about as this relates to defense and our own national security here at home and abroad.
Sure. Yeah, mineral security is national security and also economic stability. So the minerals produced in our country, or the ones we import, from those we make metals that are important for our military, like tungsten, for armament, antimony for ammunition, cobalt and manganese for jet engines. So all of the metals that are needed by the military, we essentially have in this country. And on the economic side, of course, those and others like potash, for example, which is the fundamental building block of fertilizer. fertilizer is important because we need to eat. So some of our minerals we're importing, it's really getting dangerous when you have to import minerals to make your fertilizer for your food. Another good example is uranium. Uranium is not only for power generation, you have medical isotope uses for it, and weaponry and others. So, and we're importing more and more uranium. Actually, our uranium production here in this country is almost, well, it's on life support, okay? Not a good idea. So we're really strung out there with regard to military and economic.
You know, the name of your book is groundbreaking.
Right.
You also believe that green technology needs mining, and that this new century that we're in calls for the U.S. to invest in its minerals. Talk about groundbreaking more. Talk about investing in this green technology, and then also talk about Green Met, your company.
Okay, sure. Be glad to. Yeah. Our country has, as I said, all of the mineral wealth we need. And what's astounding, Armstrong, is that our country has only been mapped about 20% geologically. We have 4/5 of our country to go to map geologically. So when people say we don't have this mineral or that mineral, I tell them, look, you mean on the part of our country that's been mapped. We have the bulk of our country to go. So we have an abundance, and you know, we use it, we need to use it. And the book has really formed on 3 premises: America's mineral abundance, okay, America's dire situation now because we're importing so much, and the third premise is mining technology has advanced way beyond what people understand, so that we can have mining and a great environment at the same time. And to say otherwise, as I said earlier, is just a flat-out lie.
How do we look at the gateway minerals?
Okay, gateway minerals are those for which we can produce one mineral, a gateway mineral, and it results in other minerals coming out in that ore. And to do that, you need metallurgy, high-tech metallurgy. For example, if you produce zinc, along with that, you can co-produce minerals such as gallium. Many people haven't heard of gallium. Another mineral is arsenic, which people say that's a poison. It's also a mineral. But when you combine gallium and arsenic, you have gallium arsenide, which is the foundation of computer chips. So when you go after one mineral or metal like copper, the co-production can be rare earth, rhenium, and other exotic minerals and metals that we need. So co-production is good. Armstrong, our forebears mined, okay, 100 years ago. They left these big piles of debris called tailings. Today we're going into these tailings piles only to find that there's metal in there that they were mining 100 years ago at or above ore grade. So I call it ore deposits on the surface. We have an added gift of these old tailings piles sitting there for us to take advantage of, do metallurgy and derive the metals out of them, and then whatever's left, use that for the reclamation of the site. We almost can't lose if our policies will allow us to do things that we're right now not able to do.
Now, when we come back, I want to touch on, in our final thoughts, how do we conserve and safeguard our environment at the same time?
Sure.
I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. We're back with Groundbreaking, America's New Quest for Mineral Independence, and our special guest, Dr. Ned Mamula, geologist. How do we conserve and guard our environment?
Okay, good question. There are 2 things we need to understand the meaning, and words have meaning, especially in science. Conservation means you have a resource, you use it to your advantage, to your needs, and you conserve it. You leave some for future generations and you take care of it. Conservation. The opposite is preservation, where you disturb nothing. Everything stays in the ground and it is no value to you, okay? This is not a good idea. We conserve, but we use, or we use and still conserve. The company I work for, Green Met, we picked that name on purpose, Green Met. It's Green Tech Minerals Holdings Incorporated, the acronym Green Met. We're here on K Street in Washington, And we advocate for mining, mineral, metallurgical companies, all of which, the ones we advocate for, have a strong environmental core, and environment is very important to them, but they're not over the top on environment. We conserve, but we don't preserve, because preserving our resources means they have essentially no value.
No, we have about 45 seconds left. In a nutshell, why should this mineral independence matter to all of us?
I'll tell you why, and this should be so crystal clear to your audience. We actually achieved energy independence not long ago. Gasoline was under $2 a gallon. We were independent of most imports of oil, and it felt good, okay? We need now to move into mineral independence, because we are in bad shape as far as mineral imports. We need to break free, and to do that, we need to turn to our own domestic mineral wealth and help us become mineral independent as a country. Our founders wanted that 250 years ago. They weren't wrong. They're right on target.
It sounds as though that minerals are truly the new wealth of America.
Armstrong, minerals and energy are the blood in our national veins, and we need them, but we can produce them wisely without actually hurting our country or our environment, producing them wisely.
You know, I encourage people to go out and get this groundbreaking book, America's New Quest for Mineral Independence, Dr. Ned Mamula, geologist. Thank you so much for joining us, and also your service to our nation. I'm Armstrong Williams. Thank you, WJLA 24/7. I'm Armstrong Williams. Enjoy the rest of your day.